Trying to catch me riding, trying to catch me riding dirty. Woo! Woo! Hey, what's up, Jimmy?
Not much. How are you?
Just strolling.
What's up with this bike?
Oh, come on now, Jimmy. This thing is awesome. You want to know the best part about it?
What's that?
No shifting, super simple.
What the what? No. You ride hills around here, right?
Yeah,
You need gears.
but why?
Gears help you get up different obstacles, different terrains. As you get slower or faster, depending on the hill, you need gears to be able to adjust for that. You can't do that on this bike.
Well, good thing we're going to talk about that on tonight's episode. Welcome to Learning with Alisha. I'm Alisha Zellner and the founder of Bike Ride for Black Lives. And tonight we're going to be talking about shifting. And this is really important because this summer I had one goal here in Fort Collins, Colorado, and that was to climb the Horsetooth Dams, which have some pretty treacherous hills. Now, it might surprise you, but shouldn't, because I'm still a brand new rider too, that I had no idea what shifting the left shifter meant in regards to it being a lot easier to climb hills. So that day that I did the Horsetooth Dams was actually the first time that I learned how to shift with both the right and the left. So today I want to make sure that you understand what it means to shift in regards to getting up hills and getting faster. Jimmy?
Yep. So this bike that you have here is just a single speed, no gears. It's designed to be super simple. Ride around town, stay on flat sections, cruise around the neighborhood. It's a beach cruiser. Think about cruising on the boardwalk, no hills. That's what this is for. Now, your bike, your other bike, your cool bike, the one we call Rado, is more similar to this one here.
Are you giving that to Q?
Giving this to Q. Q.
All right.
So this particular bike is a road bike. The shifters on this are integrated into the brake levers. Road bikes are a fairly common class of bikes. They range from low end to high end, and pretty much everything at this point has an integrated shifting system, meaning the shifter and the brake lever are built into each other.
Ah, they're both here.
Both here. Yep.
Okay.
So you have a right hand shifter and brake lever, left hand shifter and brake lever. Now in this particular case, the right hand is where you're going to make most of your gear changes. This is where you're going to have the most clicks. So you're going to have basically one click per gear. The large lever is going to make it easier to pedal.
And by large lever, you mean both of them together?
Both of them together. Yep. The small one is going to make it harder to pedal. On the left side, you're going to have your big gear changes. Now in this particular case, there are only 2 chain rings on the front, so you only have 2 gears to change. Large lever is going to make it harder. So it kind of works opposite, and we'll go into why that is in just a few. The large lever, again, swing that over. It's going to make it harder to pedal. And the small one is going to bring that back to an easier gear.
Okay.
So big changes are happening on the left. And we'll go over to the crankset here, and I'll show you the big differences there. So let me activate our zoom feature here.
Come on in.
There we go. So right over here on the front derailleur, this shifter is going to move the chain. Naturally, the front derailleur wants to sit on the small ring. That's where the spring pulls it. And that's why that small shifter moves it to a smaller ring. Big shifter moves it to a big ring.
Oh, that is really helpful in thinking about that.
Yep.
Big shifter, both together, big ring in the front.
Yep.
Little shifter, little ring.
Little ring in the front.
So, left side belongs to the front.
Left side is the front.
Okay.
Yep. Big changes on the front. Now, on the rear, the same sort of thing happens, but the results are a little different. The small ring and small shifter work together. So when you hit that small part of the shifter, it moves it to a smaller size ring. Now on the rear, the smaller size, these are called cogs. The smaller cog is your harder gear. So that's why when you shift the small one here, it gets harder. The large thumb lever, the large paddle here is going to move you to a larger size ring, which is going to be easier. That make sense?
Yes.
Now, when do you shift? Okay. Typically on a road bike, and we'll go over this on a mountain bike as well, when you're going up a hill, you want to be in an easier combination.
Okay.
On a road bike, that means small ring in the front.
Large ring in the back.
And one of the larger sizes in the back. This will vary depending on the rider. Some people are stronger than others. Some people have better technique than others. Ultimately, you need to find the comfortable gear for you to climb up that hill. If you're going down a hill, that's where you're going to want to shift into a harder gear. And that's going to be the big ring in the front and the smaller ones in the back.
So some of this is often happening simultaneously.
Sometimes it does. Typically for new riders, it's kind of one or the other. And usually what we see is most folks will do almost everything with the back.
That would be me.
Then they realize, man, these hills are killing me. My legs are burning. And then they realize I've got a whole nother gear in the front.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for those that have 3, it gets even easier for them, or how does that work?
So yeah, typically if you had what was called a triple on the front, a triple crank, so 3 chain rings, the gear ratios would be a little different. So these rings would be different sizes. This big one, the larger ring would be a little bit bigger. The middle ring would be pretty close to where it currently is, and then you'd have a smaller ring. So you have an even lower gear range.
Okay.
Yeah.
So understanding shifting when it comes to hills, what about speed?
So if you're going faster, or you want to go faster, if you stay in a low gear, kind of like a manual transmission in a car, if you stay in first, there's only so fast you can go.
Okay.
You're going to be revving a lot and not really going anywhere. Same thing with a bicycle. What you'd want to do there is go to that big ring and go to a harder gear in the back. So what ends up happening there is you can see the crank starts to spin slower as it's basically covering that larger size ring on the front. If you were going down a hill, or if you stood up on the pedals and put more power into it, you could ultimately go faster.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And ultimately, a lot of this comes from leg power, yes?
It does help to have some good leg power.
Okay.
It will help develop some leg power as well. Now, one thing to note, one thing that a lot of new cyclists will do is put the bike in a really hard gear and think that they're getting a better workout because they're pushing harder. Puts more stress on the knees, more stress on the body than what's necessary. Ideally, what you want to do is find yourself a happy medium where you're pedaling at about 90 RPMs, which when you first do that feels pretty high. For a lot of folks, that often means starting off in the middle or lower ring in the front, and usually somewhere around middle to lower side of the rear cassette.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what does this look like on a mountain bike or a hybrid?
Yep. So on a mountain bike, we've got one here behind you.
I'll take this one for me.
So when we switch to a bike with flat handlebars, the shifters change cosmetically, but they function the exact same way. So this particular bike, let me activate that zoom feature again.
Oh,
So we'll get up on the drivetrain there.
Hey, this looks a little bit different, Jimmy. It
Yep.
only has...
Mountain bikes have moved to what's called a 1x drivetrain. The previous bike would have been called a 2x. 2 rings in the front, by however many gears you have in the back. This particular one is a 1x12. So 1 ring in the front, 12 speeds in the back. Now,
And that refers to how many are back here?
yep, the number of cogs on that cassette.
Okay.
So what makes this work well? Not having the front derailleur and just the rear derailleur allows the drivetrain to be a little simplified. Saves a bit of weight on the bike, improves ground clearance for a mountain bike. So if you're going over rocks or logs, less chance of hitting a larger size chain ring.
Okay.
Yep. Now in this particular case, you only have one shifter. So what's different here is instead of a shifter built into the brake lever, it's an individual shifter pod. In this particular case, you have 2 thumb paddles.
Oh, right here.
One at the front, a larger one here,
Okay.
and a slightly smaller one behind it. So, same thing. That larger paddle, go ahead and shift, moves you to a larger size ring in the back, which is going to be your easier gears. The smaller one.
And I just push the small one by itself?
Yep. Is going to move you to smaller size rings, which in the back means harder gears.
Oh. Well, that seems way more simple.
Yep. So one thing you always want to make sure to do, now granted for the demonstration I showed you, I did a faux pas, but you always want to make sure that you're pedaling when you shift. So if you're out there on the road, make sure you are pedaling. That will help the chain actually catch the rings and move to where it needs to be. And ideally, try to avoid looking down at what the bike is doing. Look up at where you're going.
So if this bike in particular had been a 2x, there would have been another set of shifters over here,
Yep.
and the same would have been true. Left would have been front, and right would have been rear.
Exactly.
And then I'm guessing that the little one would have made it go smaller,
Yep.
and then the large one makes it go bigger.
Yep.
Okay,
That's it.
I'm telling you, sometimes I feel like you just have to go out there and do it to get it. And so in particular on mountain bikes, is there any tips that you would give someone as they're taking up kind of a different hills that have rocks in particular, whereas, my, Horsetooth Dam adventure was still uphill, but it was on a road?
Mm-hmm. And actually, this would apply to road cycling as well. Ideally, if you can, try and ease up your pressure a little bit when you're shifting, especially on a hill. If you can, anticipate the terrain ahead of you. Like if you know you're going to be climbing a steep hill, build up as much speed as you can going into it, but try and shift ahead of time. Get yourself into an easier gear so you're not shifting under a lot of torque. That puts a lot of stress on the chain and can cause the chain to sometimes derail if things are not adjusted properly. Same thing on the road if you're going up a steep hill. If you do have to shift gears, try and just ease up a little bit on the pedals. Make the shift and then back at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any other kind of shifters that we should talk about, or anything else we should know about shifting?
There are some variations out there. There are twist shifters or grip shift, as some folks call them. That is basically the type of shifter that is similar to a motorcycle throttle.
Okay.
Where you have a shifter built onto the inside section of the grip. Then basically you just grip with your thumb and index finger and you rotate in order to shift gears.
Okay.
Yeah.
And typically they have numbers on them, I'm guessing,
They
too?
will often have numbers. Entry-level and mid-level bikes often do have gear indicators to let you know what gear you are in. Similar to a manual car, the lower the number or the lower the number combination, the easier it is to pedal. The higher the number combination, the harder it is to pedal. So the faster you're going to be able to go.
Fantastic. Anything else?
If your drivetrain is sounding funny, bring it into a mechanic. Chances are something's not shifting just right. We usually see it on mountain bikes where after a crash, something gets a little bent or damaged and out of alignment and things don't shift well. If that happens, bring it into a shop. Have it looked at.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jimmy.
Sure.
And thank you all for joining us on tonight's episode of Learning with Alisha. Next week, we'll be discussing bike safety and rules of the road. See you then.